are now starting with the presentation.
And members of the board, as you know, we've been working on our branding process since June. With me tonight is Gemma and Ian with Haven Creative to present to you our brand presentation, and I will let them take over from there.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for having us. Members of the EDA, thank you for being here and joining us as well. My name is Ian Redmond. I'm the strategy director at Haven Creative. Am I talking to the mic now?
Just pull close to you.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I saw this a little far. My name is Ian Redmond. I'm the strategy director here at Haven Creative. As Brandy said, we've been working on this project for about 8 months or so. We're really excited to present our final draft for you all to consider with the hopes that you all have nothing but positive comments, but obviously if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear that in the public session today. A lot of what we're going to talk about we're going to show the new brand and then talk about how it can be implemented effectively by the county to reach its goals. Why is that not? Oh, there we go. But first, a little bit about Haven Creative. We're a branding agency outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been in business about 12 years. My team is Gemma and I on this project, but we have about 7 full-time members and other vendors that have supported Rockbridge County's branding project throughout the last 8 months. Our founder and creative director, Jenny Buchholz, has about 20 years of experience in branding. We've worked with a number of different communities throughout the country, including Newtown, Connecticut, Waxhaw, North Carolina, and others. When we started this project with Rockbridge County, we worked with your staff and your branding committee to set some clear goals for what we hope to achieve with this new brand identity. The big goal, first and foremost, is increasing brand awareness so that when we communicate about Rockbridge County, people already know who you are, know what you stand for, and really are able to prove just how much that brand awareness has grown over time. This is really an effort to attract more economic opportunity and enhance tourism. Business recruitment, employee recruitment are 2 big goals of this branding project, as well as increasing foot traffic, hotel stays, sales tax, etc. But the underlying piece of that makes all of this work is brand adoption. And that's really our third goal, is making sure that from the county staff to our community members to the leaders at the dais and the general public behind me, everyone is saying the same story together and is moving forward with this new brand identity, clearly communicating what Rockbridge is, what makes it unique, and how we want people to perceive Rockbridge County. To understand and develop this brand identity, we undertook a number of brand research activities. We first looked at about 10 different competitors, neighboring counties, certain jurisdictions. The full list of counties is on the screen, but we really looked at brand perception. And the reason why we care about brand perception is that branding is not just a logo and a tagline, as we've talked over the last 8 months. It's about what people are saying when you're not in the room, the words they're using, how they think about and feel about your brand. So we looked at your competitor's brand. We also talked to the community. We conducted a panel interview with the Chamber of Commerce. We also visited Rockbridge County, spoke with local business leaders towards some of the main attractions. And then our main brand research activity was we conducted a trio of surveys, first to county staff, then to our political and community leaders, and then to the general public. This strategy and brand research activities culminated in a half-day workshop right here in this room with our branding committee, where we really dug into who is this brand for, what do we want the new brand identity to be, and how can we get that internal and external adoption from the community. Through our surveys, we had 39 staff responses, 8 community leader responses, and 292 responses from the general public in our community survey. That community survey had about a 6% margin of error. We're not a traditional polling agency, but typically when we look for a survey, we want an 8 to 10% margin of error. So we were really happy with the results that we heard from the community. Among a number of questions, we asked the general public to assess their perception of Rockbridge County. One of the most interesting questions we asked was, when you first think of Rockbridge County, what 3 words come to mind? We often play this game in branding. When I say Las Vegas, you probably think gambling, or when I say Los Angeles, you might think Hollywood. So we asked, when you first think of Rockbridge County, what do you think of? The respondents overwhelmingly said the words beautiful, mountains, rural, home, community, peaceful, and nature. These, among other things that we heard in our research, informed several key themes that were really clear by the end of our multi-month research process. First of all, Rockbridge County is home to abundant natural resources, outdoor adventure. Really that natural resource, the accessibility to adventure, were big things that kept coming up over and over and over again. One that I think is really important in this story is that Rockbridge County is really its people. The people make the county, and telling the story of the people who live here, who work here, who visit here, that's really what will make this brand stand out. And the people who live here really driving that identity to attract more businesses, attract more workers to come and move and live in the county. We also heard that we should look back and respect the past, but also look forward. And really the fact the county is at the crossroads of what we call opportunity and abundance as a really strong point that we want to highlight, especially in economic messaging. All of this culminated into what we call the brand book. This is your guiding document for how to use this brand identity, present the brand positioning, use the words, communicate to the right people, as well as represent visually Rockbridge County in every piece of marketing and communication moving forward. This is just an abridged version of that brand book. Brandy can provide the full version. It's really an internal technical document, but the key points are what we're going to present to you tonight as part of your consideration. First is our brand story. This is the overall narrative for the county that we're proposing in this new brand identity. A brand story is basically the pool of words and themes. It's that overarching narrative that if someone hears it start to finish, they know exactly what Rockbridge County is about. Our brand story that we're proposing is, it's hard to find a place in Rockbridge County that isn't filled with natural beauty and a rich history. And that is what so many people love about this place. Seated in the Blue Ridge Mountains at the southern end of the Shenandoah Valley, Rockbridge is a place defined by its natural features. But it's also defined by the welcoming people who call Rockbridge home. Home to the peaceful, quiet life that so many build here, home to the historical events that have shaped the community. It is also home to potential. Located along 2 major interstates, Rockbridge sits at the intersection of abundance and opportunity. Whether you live here, work here, or are just visiting, Rockbridge is naturally connected to everything you want. You'll hear in that several key themes and words that we're recommending are used throughout all county communications, whether that is for attracting residents, attracting businesses, labor, or additional tourism. That story is made up of what we call brand pillars. These are foundational elements to any brand. These are almost like the core values to your brand identity. The ones that we identified were naturally beautiful, historically connected, and rooted in community. There are longer descriptions underneath those, but what they boil down to is, if you had to strip away everything else, the 3 uniques that we think are critical to Rockbridge County and its identity are its natural beauty, its historical connections, and its people. You'll see those have translated directly from our key research themes. We also identified a personality for Rockbridge, what we call a brand archetype, which is the everyman. This is welcoming, authentic. We saw and heard from Rockbridge County residents and community members that Rockbridge is a place that's welcoming, that's meant for anyone who wants to participate. And so we think that from marketing to customer service to any interaction that a resident, business owner, or prospective visitor, laborer, whoever, should be receiving that same authentic, welcoming experience. The everyman is the guide that encourages that authenticity, that caring nature, the welcoming feel and tone of how Rockbridge interacts with its audiences. We also identified a voice for marketing, which is called the Caring Explorer. This is a kind of a summary of what is basically the tone that we believe from this research that we've done, Rockbridge should carry forward in all of its marketing and communication. And that is equal parts adventure and safety. The Caring Explorer encourages someone to try something new, maybe start a business, maybe move here and start a life. But they also show that, hey, we're a community, we're going to have your back and we're going to support you. It has equal parts of that. You have the opportunity to thrive here, and you also have a safe home at the end of the day. All of this culminates into a tagline, which is the fun kind of marketing component of a brand identity. Naturally connected, pulling in not just your natural resources, but your people, your resources, your history, and everything that you have to offer here in the county. It is all naturally connected. This tagline is a way that we can really use quick storytelling. It's meant to be memorable. So you'll see it when Gemma goes through some graphic design examples, how we can use that tagline to tell the story of Rockbridge County. But the key themes that we're presenting tonight are naturally beautiful, historically connected, and rooted in community. Those are those three key themes that weave throughout the brand story, the brand pillars, our tagline, and our brand personality. With that, I'll let Gemma talk about our style guide.
All right. So this is the style guide portion of the brand book, and it's typically about 10 pages or so. And it's really home to everything brand identity. So this is where you're going to find your brand color palette, your typography, how to use the logo, how not to use the logo, and then ultimately the most important component, which is the logo rationale. How did we end up on this logo for Rockbridge County? So a reoccurring theme that we found, and Ian touched on this with our community feedback, is Rockbridge County is home to an abundance of natural beauty. And we knew from the beginning of starting to design this logo that we really wanted to honor that natural beauty here. And so as you can see, focusing on this icon here, at the heart of this icon is House Mountain. And this might look familiar to some of you because we use the same illustration style as the Rockbridge Outdoors icon. We did this on purpose because we wanted these logos to kind of complement each other, but also stand strong on their own. Above the mountain, you'll see a beautiful bright yellow sunrise, and this connects back to the opportunity that's in Rockbridge County. Flowing up the center of the R is a river, and this not only represents the beloved Goshen Pass, but all Rockbridge waterways. All of these natural elements are encased in a strong R shape, conveying the strength and stability of the county. So these are all the variations of the logo. We always like to provide different variations just because there's going to be a countless number of applications that you're going to use this logo on. So as you can see, we've got a stacked version, long version, and even shorter versions like the submark or the icon. There might be cases where you only want to use the icon on something, and there might be cases where you don't want to use the icon at all and you only want that text. So we give you kind of guidelines on how to use that there. This is an example of what Rockbridge County's graphic style would look like. One of the things I personally love the most about this logo is you can pull out the different nature elements in this logo. So as you can see, we used the river graphic element to really highlight these photos. And as Ian was speaking on, we played on that tagline. The tagline is naturally connected, but in this photo of the person kayaking, we did naturally adventurous. The woman drinking wine, naturally fun. So these are just some ways that you can play around with those different elements inside the logo and have a beautiful graphic style overall. Here are some examples of how the logo can be used on branded merchandise. On the right there is a potential staff shirt, and then on the left is maybe a more fun shirt that you could use for marketing. Again, another example of how you can pull out that mountain in the sunrise, put the tagline underneath of it, and have a beautiful shirt. Lastly, here are some print examples. This is what it could look like on a billboard, and then also letterhead, business cards, just kind of print use of the overall logo.
So tonight we are asking you to consider this proposed brand identity. What next steps would look like from our end with an approval from the board at a later date is we would provide this final logo library and brand guide to the county staff, along with a comprehensive report of all the findings with our research, as well as brand implementation recommendations. This is really one milestone in a much longer process. While this took 8 months, really rolling out a brand and implementing it takes about 12 to 18 months. There's a lot of work that goes into that, as I'm sure your staff will talk about at a future date when it comes to that. But this is really that key mile marker. At this time, though, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them, or any questions about design, Gemma can come in and answer those as well. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Any questions? Awesome. Any questions from the EDA? Thank you.
Brandy, do you want to just give a quick overview, put you on the spot here on all the folks that were involved in this, or as many as you can remember off the top of your head?
So we'll discuss this again at the regular session, and included in that, I was going to thank my committee, which included Mr. Lewis, Supervisor Lewis, Supervisor McDaniel, Chief Ramsey, and then Gene Clark stayed on even after retirement to assist us through this process. And so I really like to thank that subcommittee. We met quite a bit in order to come up with this brand that I'm really excited about implementing over the next 12 to 18 months, if you approve it during the regular session. Questions?
My goodness.
None. I like that.
Never heard Mr. Hawkins be so quiet. Just enthralled with
There's a time for everything, but I can't speak for the EDA as a whole. I can speak to the process. And I think I was part of a lot of the development of the strategic economic development plan that has been put together for Rockbridge County. This is one piece of that. Seeing the progress, seeing something done that can be considered by the Board of Supervisors and by the Economic Development Authority as a whole is frankly delightful after all that was put into that strategic economic development plan. We had a conversation at our meeting last Monday about social media. How do we go about moving that forward? And, all of these things are important to us. I will look forward to our authority members having a more full discussion with Brandy about the next steps. Having this in front of us is one piece. How it gets implemented is where the rubber meets the road. And that's where I think our board is going to want to get waist deep. And I will look forward to talking with all of them about that. So thank you for inviting us to this work session. Thank you for including us in this, but I think it's premature for us to do a whole lot of commenting.
Well, if there are no other comments or questions, then we will close the work session.
I'll make a comment before you close. I mean, being a part of the committee, we went through 3, 4, 5 different variations before we settled on this one. And at one point, I think the committee confused Haven so much they said they just threw it out and started brand new, which was a good thing. We really liked what you ended with and what you brought to us. Like Brandy said, thank the committee. We had I don't even know how many meetings, but it was a lot of discussion about we needed something that was going to make us stand out, and something that when people saw it, whether it was on the side of a truck or on a billboard or on a wayward sign or whatever, they knew it was Rockbridge County. And I think I believe with what we have here, we have that. You know, now's your time, because this is really, you know, the first time you've seen it and what all's involved in it. You know, please ask your questions, and please state your concerns, you know, if there are, because, you know, this is something we're not going to do every single year. This is something we need to get right. And we need to use it in our community. In our committee, we've talked about, you know, social media. We've talked about the need, you know, getting this is one expense. There's going to be additional expenses, you know, whether it's branding of shirts for all our staff members, whether it's putting the emblem on our vehicles, whether it's, you know, other merchandise, whether, you know, I don't think in Rockbridge County we have any wayward signage. You know, are we going to put some signs out there? You know, so this is just the first step. It's not the end of the process. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that, and give you ample opportunity to, again, ask questions, address your concerns or whatnot.
I personally have no concerns, and I want to thank both of you gentlemen for working so hard, and the EDA, of course, Brandy, for all that you've done. I've come a long way, and I'm very, very pleased with this particular logo. So thank you.
I do. I'm excited about it.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will close the work session and reconvene at 5:30 for our regular meeting
As well.
I hear a motion to adjourn the EDA meeting. Mrs. Herring, second from Mr. Powell. All in favor? Consider it done.
Maybe a drone or something.
I would like to bring the Monday, March 25th Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Ms. Whitten, would you please take roll?
Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor McDaniel.
Here.
Supervisor Lyons.
Here.
Chair Ayers.
Here. We will now have a prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you would like to join us, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. Tonight, we ask for special blessings for the families and friends. J.D. Clemmer, who we lost last week, pillar of the community, lifetime member of the Effinger Fire Department. We ask these in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will hold citizens' comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizens' comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial in on one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will see the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling by telephone. Are there any recommended changes to this agenda? Anyone? No. Are there any recommendations or presentations?
So moved.
We will now welcome citizens' comments. Please note that those wishing to speak about items advertised for public hearing can do so during that portion of the agenda scheduled to begin at 6. When your name is called, please address the board at the podium, stating your first and last name and magisterial district. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. There is a timer on the table for your convenience. Is there anyone signed up?
Yes, a Brian Stuffle.
Please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Steffel. My wife and I reside at 925 First Mill Road here in Lexington, just outside of Lexington city limits, Cars Creek District. I'm here to tell you about a matter of concern to people across the Rockbridge County area, including myself. Our concern is the ongoing pollution of the Little Calf Pasture and Maury Rivers due to sediment from Lake Meriwether near Goshen Pass. The National Council Area Council of Boy Scouts operates the Goshen Scout Reservation, including a very large lake and 30-foot tall Goshen Dam. Sediment has been accumulating in Lake Meriwether since the dam was constructed in 1966 and has kept the Little Calf Pasture on the EPA list of impaired waterways since 1996. That's 28 years, far too long to be tolerated by the citizens of this county. Sediment becomes a downriver pollutant when water is released to lower the lake level for purposes of maintenance or public safety. The water is released into a final stretch of the Little Calf Pasture and then flows into the Maury. Water from Lake Meriwether is often so turbid that the Maury can appear to be two rivers flowing side by side for miles downriver, one clean and one turbid, one discolored and one clouded by sediment. Tons of sediment escape the lake with each release at the dam. Why is sediment undesirable? Well, habitats are destroyed, fish and wildlife populations decline, recreation tourism are impaired, and those are just some of the reasons. About 13 years ago, DEQ organized a state and local collaboration to determine a total maximum daily load of sediment in the Little Calf Pasture. The TMDL tells us how much sediment the river can tolerate and still meet water quality standards. This effort is detailed in a 2010 DEQ report that I can provide at your request. 8 years later, DEQ organized a similar collaboration to develop a plan to implement the TMDL. The plan described in a 2018 document entitled Little Calf Pasture River Water Quality Improvement Plan, which I also can provide that to you at your request. It lays out the conservation practices needed to reduce the pollution. The practices recommended for areas above the Scout Reservation were implemented. The practices targeting issues within the Scout Reservation are not being implemented. The report states it's primarily the responsibility of individual landowners and local governments to take the actions necessary to improve the river. Sorry, with just one hand, I'm
No
slow in
problem.
turning pages. Accordingly, I ask that you coordinate with the BSA and legislators for implementation of the sediment reduction measures. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That is all who has signed up, ma'am.
All right. We'll move on to the approval of the March 11th, 2024 minutes.
There is no one online either.
Oh, excuse me. You said there is not?
There's not.
All right. And I will move on to the minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve them?
Move to approve.
All right, Mr. Lyons, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Consideration of the school appropriation resolution.
Yes, for the school division, we're requesting approval of authorizing $799,224 in grant funds for Fund 50.
Gentlemen, questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Mr. McDaniel, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Consideration of the county appropriation resolution. Mr. Harrison?
Yes, ma'am. The total amount for bills this period is $432,269, and there are no additional appropriations requested for this period. Separate from this resolution, the only thing I have to add to my report is that Mr. Suter and I will be recommending to the Finance Committee that we push back the tax due date to June 24th to give more time for us to work on the budget due to a delay in state action adopting their budget. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Does that change our meeting dates, our
Uh,
budget meeting
It-
dates?
It wouldn't change the current adoption date scheduled for May 13th is the current scheduled date for adoption budget. We could still keep with that date, but as far as we'll be also looking at recommendations for presenting the initial draft of the budget from April 8th and pushing that back a little bit.
Essentially, what what that means is that, the commissioner needs time to do the budget book and send it, or not the budget book, the tax book, and then send it over to the treasurer's office. Then it has to go to the printer to print tax bills, and that really wouldn't leave enough time for a June 5th due date. It provides residents with additional opportunity rather than getting a very short turnaround time between receiving the bill and having to pay it.
Does that mean our budget meeting on April 8th is still in place?
Well, I don't know. It remains to be seen. We've got another finance committee coming up.
Any other questions? Not, is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Okay, Mr. Lyons,
Second.
Mr. Lewis, okay, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Day, and I vote yes. Haven Creative Brand Recommendation, Ms. Flint.
Member of the board, thank you for your time this evening. At your work session prior to this meeting, you received a presentation from Haven Creative highlighting the new brand that we are recommending. As noted at the work session, we've been working on this for over 9 months very diligently with my branding committee, which included Supervisor Lewis, Supervisor McDaniel, Jean Clark, even in her retirement, and Chief Ramsey. So I'd like to thank that committee for their hard work and dedication. And as presented during the work session, would like to ask your approval, if you would, of the new branding, which is being recommended by that committee. And then Ian and Gemma have actually stayed around if you have any additional questions of the representatives from Haven Creative.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the brand as presented and direct Ms. Flint to move forward with Haven as far as the deployment phase of the brand.
Do I have a second?
I would second that. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you very much for all your hard work. Consideration of approval of Vision Government contract modifications. Mr. Harrison.
Is that mine?
Your name's on it. Uh-oh.
Ashton, it's a meeting.
Steph, I
I
made,
think,
Oh, here,
be
I
on
got
it.
two people to
Okay.
save me.
Yeah, so I know we left off, I guess that was the meeting at the end of February, after discussing the vision contract for our computer assisted mass appraisal program. We did go out and talk to other localities about what kind of costs they incurred for similar type of products. It's not really an apples to apples comparison, but when we compared the cost per parcel for the migrations and everything, they were pretty much right in line with other offers, with the discounted offer that was provided by Vision. So just wanted to bring that back to see if there's something we can do for. Also, during that time, as John was just stepping in as the new attorney, he was able to review the contract. And the reason we didn't have this on the prior meeting was that we did want to have another negotiation with Vision on the contract, and we were able to negotiate a few additional terms and language that made John feel better. But I also
great.
kind of defer to John what he felt about the contract that was proposed.
Yeah, we had a good negotiations with Vision. We were able to remove some of the language that we had concerns about. The language that we removed was language applying to an additional fee if there was delays for the implementation. They agreed to remove that language. We also were concerned about our access to data in case there's two cases where we could potentially were concerned about losing data. If for some reason we or Vision terminated the contract, we had to be able to keep access to our data no matter even if termination took place. So they agreed to modification of the language to allow us to do that, even if we're in a period of termination. And also they have the right to suspend us if we misuse their platform because it's going to be in the cloud. And that's a reasonable thing for them to have. But we also still need access to data. So they agreed even in that situation that we'd still be able to access our data. So we received better terms. And we also the charge for, there was some language in there allowing for traveling to charge us for their costs for traveling, reimbursement for that. And that is going to be based on our pre-approval only. So we would have complete control over that, even though they did make clear that it would be highly unlikely that they'd have to travel down here to do anything. But I just want to make sure we protect ourselves that way. So with those changes, I'm comfortable with the language that we have. I think it protects the county's rights and allows us to have the control that we need over our data.
And David Hickman, I believe is a vice president of their operations, has joined the meeting in case you had any questions directly for him.
Gentlemen, any?
I don't think I think our questions last time, were those contract questions that John just addressed. So that was the only issues that I had from previous meetings.
And I apologize for not recalling the exact figures. Is the figures that I was, drawing from were ones that I had gathered back in January of 23. So they weren't fresh on my mind in the last meeting. And so I was able to find those numbers and recall that it was very competitive in terms of the pricing.
If this is approved, how soon will this be upgraded?
I think for the project, we're probably looking at about a year for a migration. I know that maybe 9 months to a year. So I once we've signed off on a contract and begin, I believe that's about 9 months to a year for a full migration. Most likely be the.
Is that something David would answer or not?
Yeah, David would be
could.
available to answer that.
Did you already promote that? Okay. David, if you have any insight on that?
Yeah, implementation and migration will take between 6 and 8 months from the time you kick off and start, and we'll coordinate the go live to match the workload within your office.
My numbers were wrong.
Brooke, are you comfortable?
You deal in zeros and ones. That's, that's your
I
job.
tend to also go a little higher because I know how stretched I am already. So, and then we're gonna, I'll likely have another, that's the next item, another big migration project coming up very soon. So there might be 2 ongoing at the same time, which will potentially slow things down.
There's only so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
My only question from the last time was, does this process, because of the dollar amount, require an RFP? And from a legal opinion, is it no? Or?
No, I think that the way that it was structured, and actually I think that was the whole reason, well, just opine on the acquisition of Stonewall. By acquiring Stonewall, they were able to, we have an ongoing contract with Stonewall. The Stonewall contract then belongs to Vision. And so it's actually being structured as an addendum to the existing contract. Now, and I think that fully, I don't think we run any risks of violating the Procurement Act by the way that it's actually structured.
And multiple other localities have taken this approach. Yeah. So I think the main thing that we would need the approval of is because the increase to the current cost is greater than the 25%. That's where we would need the board's approval to accept it without going to an RFP.
All right, if all your questions and concerns have been addressed, do I have a motion to approve the contract addendum resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Lewis?
Second.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day? And I vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Mr.
David.
Hickman, thank you for continuing to negotiate with us so we could get this done. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you and looking forward to another 20 years of doing business with you. Thank you all.
Next is the consideration of the interest payment request for Goshen Volunteer Fire Department.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you have before you agenda item for, as you mentioned, the Goshen Volunteer Fire Company. As you know, the interest program that we currently have has been in place for several years. That is capped at the $50,000 budget line. And our most recent one that was approved was at the beginning of the year for Rockbridge Bass Fire Department. Since then, we've had an additional request from the Goshen Fire Department. What they purchased was 12 new air packs, self-contained breathing apparatus that is required for firefighters to wear inside of a burning building or any kind of IDLH atmosphere for their safety. The ones that they currently have was over 15 years old. And when you get up in that age, the bottles are no longer able to be tested, serviced, or anything like that. They're kind of aged out for safety purposes. So they recognized the need. They went out, secured the funds to do that, and then requested through the Fire and Rescue Association, who recommended to you all for consideration as well at our February 20th meeting, and they were in support. So I did provide some documentation for the FY24 budget that shows that we can fit them in the matrix to catch them up on the interest for this year. And then I provided the FY25 budget line for that, and you can see that we're still good with a little bit of excess there for FY25, and then it continues on through 26 and 27. So with that, I'll take any questions on that. We did present to the Public Safety Committee as well, which they approved to bring to the full board for consideration.
with the committee recommendation, that's even more of a no-brainer. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, may I just ask a question? Are these air packs, the bottles, are they interchangeable with their neighboring fire companies?
Yes, sir. There.
Do all the fire companies in the county use the same type of bottles?
No, sir. For the most part, I would say 90% use what's their MSA brand, G1s type. We do have a couple that are using Scott packs, but what happens is they have interchangeable connectors that we can still work with each other as we go through. One of the things that in addition to the 12 air packs that I did not mention, the Chief Jolly also told me that they purchased what's called a RIT pack, a rapid intervention team pack, where if you need to go in and rescue someone, it's actually an air bottle with a hose that you can go in, supply air to if there's ever a downed firefighter. So they do have that. But to answer your question, twofold, no, not everybody's the same, but we can still interchange the connections.
I don't have a problem at all with the recommendation or anything. I just like for all of our departments to, they all have to have bottles. They all have to have hoses. They all have, if they could get on the same page and use the same type of equipment, it may be that through your leadership at the county level, we could procure better prices for them.
Absolutely.
Through a mass quantity order versus each individual department going out and ordering a few bottles here and a few bottles there.
Absolutely.
That's my only recommendation.
We would like to work on get to that point at some time.
Everybody? All right. Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Madam Chair, you have a question too?
Yes, sir, but it's a little, at the association meeting, Glasgow advised they had a unit set up to come on location and fill air bottles.
That's
Any of
correct.
the other departments have that, or it's just Glasgow?
So we do have their rescue truck that is available for that, and also purchased through a grant between Cars Creek, Effinger, and Lexington. We have a trailer that is stationed at Lexington Fire Department that can also be brought to scenes if needed as well.
To what sidebar, sort of like Mr. Day's question, as far as the budget for interest payments, so putting you on the spot here, would you say you're comfortable at this point that all the volunteer agencies that could use that avenue are using it, and they're not doing something they need to do because they feel they wouldn't qualify?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody right now currently has a fair shake at using those payments. It has been discussed in the past, just sidebar conversations about raising that $50,000 cap. I'm of the stance, if we get to that point where we need to, we would come to you all for consideration. But right now, everybody that takes a loan or that needs something we've been able to accommodate to that.
And it's to Mr. McDaniel's point there of planning, and strategy. We can get more value out of that, or we don't everybody coming at the same time.
And we're at a really good place where throughout the years, every year, the ones that are in there, the interest continues to decrease. So we've been at a really good, we had one time, maybe 2019, 2020, where we had to split up a couple of payments for some departments. I think it was Cars Creek and Glasgow Rescue when they bought their ambulance. But other than that, we've been able to accommodate the needs so far.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but these requests come through the Fire Rescue Association. It's agreed upon on them before it comes to us as a request.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, members of the board, when I first started here, that you're exactly right. It used to be that each individual agency would just come and request and, just come to a meeting. And this gives it's much more streamlined this way. And it's kind of a roundtable agreement. That everybody approves everybody else's request, and it comes from the association.
All right. Thanks for that update. We are now at 5 minutes. Consideration of the municipal software proposal ranking.
Okay. This project has been discussed for many years. Essentially, the county's financial software has not changed appreciably since the early 1990s. One reason is that it's been very stable. However, many localities across the Commonwealth have taken a look to see what else is out there. Any replacement of a general ledger, tax billing, and collection software is a sea change in a local government organization. And the first step in our process was to hire an experienced consulting firm to guide us. In a competitive process, we hired Visual IT based out of Manita in 2022. They reviewed every process that we do in a fairly exhaustive manner with lots of interviews with all departments. And using that knowledge and experience in other localities, they helped us issue a request for proposals in 2023. And I know this is a rather lengthy board report. I won't hit all the comments in it. You all have had a chance to read it. It's been publicly posted. But we did receive 5 proposals. Of these, three of the companies were interviewed. Of the 3 interviewed, only 2, Tyler and Keystone, produced a turnkey solution, while one, Avinity, provided the solution for tax billing and collections, but not for finance and community development and the other portions of the project. Essentially, then it broke into 2 teams. 2 review teams were formed to establish or to evaluate the 2 basic functions, with Virtual IT's Randy Grubb coordinating, and Randy is online with us tonight. Those 2 teams were the tax billing and collections group, and that was Commissioner of Revenue at the time, David Weitzel, and new Commissioner Brooke Tomlin, who's with us. And also Treasurer at the time, Betty Travato, with Missy Weitzel picking off the ball on January 1. And also Finance was represented by Ashton Harrison, and IT was represented by Stefan in the back. On the finance and community development side, finance was represented again by Ashton. Purchasing was Amy Milner. Finance and payroll was Julie Weitzel. HR was Heidi Hoke. Community development was Chris Sladen. Building and permitting was a combination of Kenny Wilson and Rhonda Miller. And of course, Stefan sat in on those as well for IT. They put a tremendous amount of time and effort and focus on these evaluations, and I'm greatly appreciative. Based on their work, it's recommended that the county pursue a contract with Tyler Technologies for a solution to support the financial, human resources, payroll, building, community development, everything but tax and billing. Then that would also leave an opportunity to acquire the tax and billing collections module at a later date, should the county so desire. And just to give you our reasoning on that, it was agreed that there's value to a single platform solution for all modules, including all those that I mentioned, as well as tax billing and collections. And Tyler was the choice for financial, HR, and community development, building, permitting functions. However, based on the evaluation, the first group, Avinity was ranked highest by that committee for tax billing and collections. Tyler is being successfully used in the Commonwealth, but there are some issues with support of these modules that have been reported by commissioners and treasurers, and that gave our commissioner and treasurer's office a little pause. And as noted in the suggested schedule in your report, the finance, HR, and permitting modules would be the first implemented in that order over the course of approximately 18 months to 2 years. If the board approves and we can reach a contract with Tyler. While we implement the first phases, it would provide time for Tyler to either resolve the reported issues, support issues, or not. Similarly, we'd be able to evaluate Tyler's performance with the implementation in the first half of the project. So then in approximately 18 to 24 months, we could bring you back a recommendation on whether or not to do one of 3 things. 1, migrate the tax billing and collections to Tyler and have everything on one system. The other would be to stay with BAI. The third would be to reissue an RFP specific to tax billing and collections. The recommendation is to adopt the resolution in your package, which approves the final ranking and directs staff to negotiate a contract with Tyler and return to the board for final approval consideration. And I'd again like to recognize the work of the commissioner's treasurer and all the staff I've listed, some of whom are present and could answer any questions that you might have. And of course, Mr. Grubb is with us as well online.
Thank you, Mr. Suter.
I'm just very surprised to see this on an agenda at this point. I guess I always envisioned it coming through a committee or something after that, so the board would have some time for this. As you noted, it's posted publicly. That was Thursday at 5 o'clock. This is a 4-year process. I fully supported the process and want to support it, but I haven't had time to digest all this information with other things on the agenda and other things going on. So I don't know what other board members' thoughts are on a committee reviewing it or what you think about that. But I'm just not, I haven't had time to go through all that.
Well, I mean, we have had a committee going over it with all of these different departments and representatives.
But not a board committee is what I'm saying.
I'll speak for myself. I would take their advice. For me, I would take the staff's advice on what to use.
Not saying I'm not, but I haven't had time to digest their advice. So that's all. That's what I'm saying. That's just me. Y'all do what you want.
Would Tyler integrate with the school system?
Yes, there's actually a piece of this in there to have the school module. As you recall, they're
already with Tyler.
They're already with Tyler, but it's an older version. I think Randy would probably be the best one to speak to that.
Yeah, it would actually replace the piece of software that they have, the Tyler platform that they have. It would replace that platform, and it would put the county and the schools all on one single platform. And it would also eliminate the cost that they are currently paying for that platform. And there would be a single subscription fee that would be paid that would support both county and schools.
Is the school board aware of this and agreeing to this?
I went through it with Dr. Thompson and his staff, and also we discussed it at the executive committee meeting most recently held. And that group was supportive.
As long as it's compatible and it works, it would actually save time.
And money.
Yeah.
Well, I understand Mr. Lewis's position, but I'd like to make a motion to authorize you to negotiate a contract. And that'll give Mr. Lewis time to review what we have and hopefully get the contract out a little earlier so he can review that too. But I move that we authorize moving forward.
I guess my question to Mr. Lewis would be, how long and how much time what do you feel you need?
I'd love to have just till next meeting or less. I mean, I don't know that it needs to go to a committee, but it is a large financial responsibility. So I don't know if finance might take a look at it, who meets regularly.
I hope we would look at the contract.
I understand. Yeah. But I think there are some figures in from my brief scan of it. I think there are some figures in there. But to Mr. Suter's point, which I didn't hear in the original board report, was you and Mr. McDaniel have had a chance to review this, right? Ms. Ayers,
Exactly.
via that
Would
school committee.
working on the contract, being privy to that contract negotiation, make you feel more comfortable to the process?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, mostly it's just a time thing. I think the process has been great. It's just a lot of critical stuff.
Just not to interrupt. Just to make sure you understand, that meeting was actually Thursday, about the time just before it was going to be posted online. So the members of that committee did not go through all this stuff. This was a verbal discussion to back up what I and Dr. Thompson and staff had talked about previously.
So we have a motion. What?
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, if
Let me ask one other question. Do we have, is there a timeline? Can we put this off for 2 weeks?
You could put it off for 2 weeks, but you know, we're trying to get the implementation started as soon as we can, assuming we get to a contract. And sometimes that does take a little bit of time. If we were going to try to do this, it would be excellent to have a contract in place by July 1. I don't think 2 weeks would make that much difference.
well, yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Dr. Lyons. His point of, you know, I can continue to look at this as things progress is not invalid. I guess I just, like I said, I'm just sort of shocked all of a sudden see it and having certainly supported the process and wanting this to happen for years. I'm gratified, and I don't have any doubt that the staff that has worked on it and the other elected people are making the right recommendation. I just wanted to have a chance to look at it. So I'll do that while Mr. Dryden is working up a contract. So I'll second Dan's motion.
Okay.
May I ask a question before you vote?
Absolutely.
Are there any concerns at all about Tyler and Avinity working together? Since we're looking at initially two different.
I'll let Mr. Grubb talk about that, but there's also in this particular case, it's not being recommended that we pursue both of them at this time. It would be at a future date, looking at the tax and billing. If we were going to go with another company, I think we would, at that time, it's 18 months later, we'd probably have to put out another RFP.
Okay, so tax and billing is going to stay as it is.
That's the recommendation for right now.
And will the Tyler system work with what we have? Because we were told the school system would work with what we had, and it never did. So I want to know if it's going to work. The new system's going to work with what we had.
Yeah, Avinity and Tyler would certainly work together. You know, you have the luxury of having a single platform today that has both your financials and your tax billing on the same platform. That is a more desirable state to be in. But you know, based on our evaluations, you know, the team saw value in Avinity versus the Tyler platform. And so the long answer to a short question is they will work together, but it will put more responsibility for moving information from one platform to the other on Rockbridge County staff. If it gets to the point that the county does choose Avinity or some other platform for tax billing instead of Tyler. So they will work together. Anytime you have two vendors and two systems, marrying them together and having them work together is certainly has a few more steps that have to occur than if you just have one vendor.
And that's true if we stay with BAI. There's going to be more work on staff. We are looking for, has been approved in the budget, we're still looking for a second IT person who has more systems background to assist Stefan with managing these systems.
Just to clarify.
Whether it's BAI or Vanity.
Just to clarify, what's being proposed is that we will actually negotiate with Tyler an option to be able to switch the treasury and the tax function to a Tyler system at a later date. So, and that would, assuming we can negotiate that properly within a period of time, we wouldn't have to go out to an RFP if they decide not to go, if they decide to go with Tyler, then we wouldn't have to have a separate RFP for that. So what's being proposed is that we enter negotiations for the finance and the community development, and then include with those negotiations will be an option at a future date to adopt Tyler for tax and for treasury.
And one of the other, with Avinity, on top of Tyler would be the cost, but not just the cost of the software, but Tyler is a software for service, so it's entirely cloud-based. Avinity is not, so we would still either have servers needed to maintain it or support it, or contract separately with the cloud provider, separate from Tyler's, for the commissioner and treasurer with the Avinity option.
Right, gentlemen, to review, I have a motion and a second from Mr. Lewis. Is there any other questions, concerns?
Again, I'm fine with the recommendation, but in the contract, I just want to make sure that the systems we have will work with what we're moving to. And if not, there's an out for us and some sort of cost reduction. I'm just going by history. We were told the school system would work with ours and it never did. So hopefully things have changed and it's better, but from a contractual standpoint, we need an out.
Yeah, we'll make sure that, I think the style we'll do for negotiating the contract is make sure we'll have all parties that will have voice in this at the table. So we won't pass it around, but we'll be negotiating together and hopefully negotiating directly with Tyler on issues that might cause problems. So thank you for bringing those up, and we'll keep you posted as the developments.
And that motion is to adopt the resolution.
Yes.
Right. Which approves the ranking and direct staff to negotiate a contract. All right, gentlemen. Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
And I vote yes. We will move on to the public hearings. At this time, we will begin. If you are interested in speaking during one or more of the public hearings, please sign up on the sheets provided on the table next to the door. Once the public hearing is opened and when your name is called, please address the board from the podium, beginning with stating your name and magisterial district. Comments should be no longer than 3 minutes. There is a timer on the table for your convenience. If you have handouts, please provide them to the clerk. Mr. Sladen.
Yes, the first public hearing we have this evening is an application by Sarah Lasapio. Has made an application for a special exception permit to develop and operate a commercial kennel, particularly a dog grooming business pertaining to its conditions. The property is owned by David and Carol Lasapio, is located on the west side of Pageants Hill Road, approximately 0.9 miles north of the intersection of Pageants Hill Road and Red Clover Lane. The property is located in the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-5 of the regulations, a kennel is a use by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Property is outlined in magenta here and consists of 55.28 acres per tax records, further identified as tax map number 95-14-C. On March 13th, 2024, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception application with the following conditions. Number 1, the business shall be limited to grooming of dogs and or cats. Number 2, no overnight boarding, breeding, or training permitted. Number 3, no more than a total of 4 dogs and or cats allowed on the property at one time for grooming. Number 3, the hours of operation for grooming services shall be limited to Monday through Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And number 5, approval contingent. Number 6 is no more than signage, no more than 6 square feet. And number 6 is approval contingent on county building department, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Health Department approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Lasapio to further detail the application and answer any questions the board may have.
All right.
I'm Sarah Losapio, licensed veterinary technician of 12 years, single mom of 3 boys, and I work at Natural Bridge Animal Hospital as a technician, which I've done for several years now, and I love it. But I'm hoping to kind of transition to something that I can be more available for my kids. And I have a 9-month-old, so being available for him is very important. I've spoken to adjoining property owners, and I think you probably have all the information already in the application that I've submitted. But everyone I've spoken to is, in approval. And I guess what I envision for the business is just one-on-one grooming, not like a bunch of dogs there all at once, but just one-on-one where I can take the time with each individual dog and groom them and, make sure I have contact with their owners, and then they would kind of go home and I would have the next one come in. So it's not, a lot of dogs all on the property at one time. And as Chris said, I guess I want to make sure that I reiterate that I'm not looking to board dogs or have dogs there, for any kind of time period or kind of stay for me, but just during the day. Any questions?
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions for the applicant? Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
There's no one signed up to speak.
There's no one online that has their hand raised either.
Is there anyone in the audience that didn't have a chance to sign up? If not, I will close the public hearing. Do we have any questions?
Is the operations going to be at the house or is there going to be a separate structure or what?
It's in the lower level of the house, but there's a separate entrance that's secure for, coming and going of kind of public. And it's not connected to any of the main living spaces or anything.
Okay. Thank you. If there's no other concerns, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Is that you, Mr. There is a motion on the floor to approve this application for a special exception permit to develop and operate a commercial kennel. Is there any additional board discussion for roll call? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Good job. Mr. Sladen?
Yes, in this case, I'm actually going to just share the board package to show the zoning map of the area. Michael W. Godfrey and Lori Ann Lamford, 926 Maury River Road, Lexington, Virginia, has made an application for conditional map zoning amendment. The application is to rezone 2 parcels of land from the general residential R1 zoning district to the agricultural transitional zoning district. That's the AT zoning with acceptance of potential proffers. There are no proffers associated with the rezoning. The properties are owned by Michael W. Godfrey and Lori Ann Lamford and are located on the east side of Maury River Road, approximately 1.15 miles north of the intersection of Maury River Road and Alphen Lane. Property is identified as tax map number 61-2-1E1. That is the property outlined here. If you can see my hand, consisting of 5.6 acres with road frontage directly on Maury River Road. And the second parcel is 61-2-1E2. That's the rear parcel here, consisting of 6.132 acres per tax records. Additionally, the applicants, landowners, and applicants own and reside at 926 Maury River Road, which is this parcel here that consists of it's identified as tax map 61-2-1C, excuse me, and it consists of 1.35 acres. That's currently in the general residential zoning. However, that acreage, that unique acreage of 1.1 1.35 acres is not included in the rezoning application. Property is located in the Walker's Creek Managerial District. On March 13th, 2024, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the rezoning application. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to landowners and review the application, purpose of the application, and answer any questions the board may have.
Good evening. I'm going to keep it really simple. I have 8 horses and a 4-stall barn, so I need a bigger barn, and based on the zoning, I wasn't allowed to do that. So I'm here to respectfully request the rezoning so that I can build a barn. That's simple. For my own personal use, I should say too, not a business.
Okay, good. Is that it?
That's all.
All righty. Chris, are you finished?
So just to piggyback off that discussion, they had came in for a farm affidavit, and that's essentially when it was identified as residential zone property. The Office of Community Development does not have the authority to approve an agricultural building in the residential zoning district. So that's the primary purpose. If needed, what I failed to do was to provide an overview of the surrounding zoning districts. Happy to do that if needed.
Please.
So on the map again, the 2 properties under consideration are highlighted in magenta, outlined in magenta, I should say. All the yellow on the map is the existing residential zoning district, the R1 district, general uses. This property does adjoin the Horse Center property. That would be to the west. And so the Horse Center property is essentially split zoned. All of this area in the light red, if you will, is agricultural transitional. So you can see both of these properties under consideration are contiguous to the agricultural transitional zoning district. And then there's a strip of land on both sides of Maury River Road. As you can see, that's the planned business. That's the B2. We have very little bit of B2 left in Rockbridge County. It's, in my opinion, an antiquated business zone that we essentially started to phase out with map amendments, I should say.
I can also add that those 2 parcels are limited in the deed to only having 1 residence built on them, so that it's really not a great residential area because the deed limits it. So that was an additional reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I will open the public hearing.
There's no one signed up to speak.
Mr. Suter,
There's no one with a hand raised online.
anyone else out there? Fine, I will close the public hearing.
I've spoken to some of the neighbors on their side of Maury River Road. Seems to be the general consensus that's perfectly reasonable request. So I make a motion to approve if there's no further conversation.
Second.
Mr. Lyons, all right. There's a motion on the floor to approve the application for conditional zoning map amendment from the general residential R1 and zoning to zoning district agricultural transitional. Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Day. And I vote yes. We'll move on to the admissions tax. Mr. Suter.
Yes, the board, as you know, the board's discussed the admissions tax multiple times over the past several years, kind of in fits and bursts early on. And then ultimately the board set originally a 3-phased approach to it. It was a 3% the first year, 6% the next year, and a 10% the following year, all with a $3 cap. And recently the board revisited that again and directed staff to advertise a change of that for public hearing for tonight, of a reduction back to 6% and elimination of the cap. And the 6% went from 6% to 10% from December 31 last year to January 1 this year. So it's currently 6% or 10% with a $3 cap. And so we did advertise that. Mr. Dryden provided a redlined ordinance, which was advertised for tonight's public hearing. in your packet.
Right, then I will open the public hearing. One on the list.
Yeah, we have Spencer. Yeah. Okay.
Handwriting's not one of my strong suits. Spencer McElroy, Executive Director of Lime Kiln. As Spencer Suter said, this text has been discussed many, many times. And we weren't part of the conversations that led to the direction of 10% to 6%. But I mean, the notes that I had made here were that, I feel as though the rate and the cap should be reflective of who we are as a locality, and not all localities are the same. And I think the direction from 10 to 6% is obviously the right direction, in my opinion. But I know that you guys have discussed other rates in Roanoke, Lynchburg, Alexandria, most of which are cities, and we're not a city. And it's hard for my organization to attract people from out of town. And reducing the tax pressure, helps us be competitive in a very competitive space. And I also feel as though, the tax should be fairly and equitably applied. Right now, eliminating the cap would change our season pass tax significantly from $3 to $18. That's a pretty big jump. And those are all predominantly locals that buy those passes. I know this been discussed when we had the open meeting a few years ago. But obviously the goal was to collect this tax from folks that come from out of town. So I do feel like there should be a cap. I understand the logic of trying to capture, multiple events or groups of people that buy one ticket. And I think that there is a way to do that with a cap as well. If there's a $1,000 ticket to an event that, comes with all sorts of stuff, is a $60 tax appropriate? I would just suggest you guys think about that as a $3 to $18 increase on a season pass appropriate when they're predominantly locals. And I will make one petition for the record, even though it's been shot down every time, which is that there's 4 nonprofits that are collecting the tax in the county. The last I was given the data. And I don't think nonprofits, I think they should be exempt. 2 of those nonprofits serve like all locals basically. So it goes against the grain of, this is mostly for tourists. And, there are a lot more events happening that I'm not sure the tax is being collected. So there's four nonprofits paying it. So I know you guys have rejected that in the past, but for the record, I'll just petition that in support of the local nonprofits that have a challenging task, especially ones that have admissions and are trying to attract people from out of town. It's a lot more difficult for us to do that here in Rockbridge County than it is in Charlottesville. It doesn't have the tax. We compete with them a lot for music events. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and you guys do support Lime Kiln. So I'm very grateful for that. Just asking for a fair and equitable application and recognition of who it affects. So
Thank you.
thank you.
That's all who's signed up.
Anyone online?
Don't think so. No, ma'am.
There's nobody else out there that didn't have a chance. Then I will close the public hearing.
I'll make a couple of comments. I appreciate Spencer's comments. Obviously, his handwriting hasn't gotten any better than years ago. We go back And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that your season tickets will be sold out by the end of the month. Is that correct? Usually? Well, this increase wouldn't go into effect till next month, so it wouldn't affect this year's ticket prices. And that would give us, as we review this ordinance on a fairly regular basis, time to maybe sit down with you and look at what, if we did go to a cap, what a more appropriate cap would be, because I'm sure you will agree that someone paying 10% on a $30 ticket's limited to 3, that they're being, and then someone buying a $300 season pass, paying $3 tax, that's not equitable. But there's probably a place somewhere in between. So I would encourage us to continue to look at that. But in the meantime, since it really, most of these season tickets are sold, and I'm sure they will continue to be sold this month unless something drastic happens, that we approve the proposal and continue to look at that and make sure that we get people like Mr. McElroy and some of the other nonprofits to the table to see if we can agree and make sure it's equitable. And that gives us, pretty much a year. So, but I would make a motion to approve the reduction to 6% and eliminating the cap.
I'll second that. And with comment that we do look at things, all things regularly, revenues and expenses. So it's not that they're not reviewed.
Just one question before we vote. In the past, when we initially set this up and made a recommendation, it was January 1 through December 31, and then the increment would change. Are we still looking at this on an annual basis, and what is the date for it to be looked at?
There's been nothing set as a date. In the past, the finance committee has looked at it. Each time it changed went from 3% to 6%, from 6% to 10%, and did not recommend bringing it to the full board. So there's no real date set.
We set a date of November to by November to look at it, review it, because if there's that way December meeting, if you're going to do a change, it can be done by the 1st of January.
That's one option.
I'm just throwing that out there because we can't go back and collect taxes because they've already been.
And that would be good for our local businesses, so they would know to start of the year what it would be.
Right.
I can get on board with that. My thinking was April 1st. That way we have an opportunity to look at our budget to see what it looks like. So we would set it April 1st through March 31st. Review it annually, but it's either way. I mean, it's something just like Mr. Lewis said. We look at it every single year. We look at all expenses and revenues, just from a planning.
Hopefully, we look at them.
Yeah, just from a planning perspective. The January 1 through December 31 at the time sounded good. When we tried to implement it practically, it wasn't a good date. So that's the only reason I'm asking.
Mr. Harrison, do you have any feelings on this?
I think I think we could do both if you implement it sooner than later. Is it 30 days from say April 1? That would give us most of the data. We wouldn't have a full 12 months before we start looking at the budget next year with the finance committee, but we'd have at least a good 10 months of
and the busiest
and the busiest months for the board to evaluate. So I think you could accomplish both goals, implement it April 1st, and then and revisit the numbers come.
Yeah, April 1st is fine. I think we were just talking about when on an annual basis, what would be the best time to look at it? Is it November timeframe, so you can set it January 1st? Or is it give us, look at it during budget season and set it April 1st to move it forward?
Your largest, just looking at past years, months, April through October and somewhat into November are your best months. Anyway, so it drops off in the winter anyway.
My recommendation would be if you wanted to do it, you do it sometime in the month of January every year, or next year if you all want to look at it again sometime in the month of January. That way you've pretty much got the data for the past year. And it gives you plenty of time to give thoughtful consideration moving into an April, March, April timeframe.
Just to give it, like February, we had $705.41 in emissions tax. So it's the summer and the fall that generates it.
So can we say we need to look at it prior to, and if we decide we're gonna have to make changes, make them as soon as possible rather than say.
Right. If you would start looking at it in December of this year, you'd have the pertinent months to evaluate the data. That's a short answer.
Yeah, right. I 100% agree that we would have the data to look at. My concern has always been in December, we don't know what the budget looks like. So understanding what our budget looks like and what the needs are, that carries you through January, February, March. I understand springtime, March, April is when some of these events get started and these organizations need to know. That's why I was just asking what type of time frame that we were looking at.
Well, once you have the data, you're gonna know approximately what your revenue is gonna be. And so.
Yeah. But until you get into budget, you don't know what your expenditures are going to be that you need to
I can
fund.
guarantee they're gonna be more each year. Or at least the request.
Okay.
So we have a motion to revise for this revised ordinance.
We also have a second.
Yeah, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Day, and I vote yes.
May I get some clarification too, please? Because I want to understand and make sure, are we talking about bringing it to the finance committee to bring it to the board, or us putting it on the agenda for revisiting? I just want to make sure that the staff is clear on what we're.
Well, I think the finance committee should review it like they currently do.
Yes.
But not let it get away from us like we probably did this year to jump up to 10%. And then, of course, we'd bring it to the board.
Okay.
I would think the finance committee could review it, and if there is a need to change, then it's brought to the board or
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Just like
we
Just
do,
fine.
right?
Yeah, just like we do.
Just like we do, but earlier. I think the idea is a bit
Okay,
earlier.
we will definitely do that. We'll do it in the January timeframe and at least be able to be looking at it to make a determination. Let the finance committee make a determination.
If I can follow up on Mr. Lyons' comment on nonprofits, that's real important. If the board wants to look at impacts on nonprofits, because we are not privy to how much revenue is generated. That's all confidential information. The only two people who can look at that are the commissioner and treasurer.
But that's
So-
about with all businesses,
That's
not just
we sell
nonprofits.
all those privy information. So in order to work with us, they would have to disclose that.
Right, but we
So
can
that's good
sit
then.
down with
And talk about that.
some of the nonprofits and hear what they have to say, and they can tell us how much they're paying. I'm sure they will. And what they think is equitable, and we can I mean, it's worth having a discussion. And I think that's really what they're asking for.
We will move on to, are there any board comments or committee updates?
So you got everything you need, Spencer?
So,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. As you all may remember, Goshen community has been working towards gaining a community center there. And as so often happens here in this area, when we apply for grants, we don't get them. And they did apply for a Department of Housing Community Development grant last year and were unsuccessful. But as we always do here, even though we don't get them, we try to re-engage and dial in and figure out how we can write a better grant application or an application that meets the changed rules such that we still have a good application. Long story short, they are reapplying for that. And there's been some conversation about what support the county might give. And I did speak with their planning specialist with the DHCD today, and her estimation is the support that we pledged last year is adequate. So I just wanted to update the board that we're still supporting and they're still working, and they're trying to move that in.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, there's no further discussion. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you all for coming.